It's an amazing Tuesday morning right here in the city of Lagos, and we are here welcoming you to the newspaper review segment on AM Cafe. My name is Folashade Ogurinde, and I'm not the only one in the studio. I have with me my esteemed colleague Faith. How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine, very well this morning. How are you too?
Yeah, I'm very fine, thank you. And it's a bit sunny.
Yes, it's a bright Tuesday morning in the city of Lagos today, and a busy one at that. And so nice having you in this Lagos studio for the newspaper review segment of AM Cafe. My name is Faith Agbeti, and this morning I'm going to be reviewing the Guardian newspaper, the Nation newspaper, and some inside stories from the Nigerian Tribune.
And also I'm having the Punch newspaper, the Vanguard newspaper, and the Nigerian Tribune. So let's go head straight to the Punch newspaper. So the head story here says teacher shortage hits public schools. 28 states fail to recruit personnel, and that story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And we also have pictures of the Children's Day celebration that held yesterday, and we can get performances by children across primary and secondary schools. Quite interesting there. We also have a story here. No single person should constitute poll petitions panel, says Jonathan. That story is on page 41 of the Punch newspaper. PDP LCCI reacts as president says 2019 budget difficult to implement. What exactly is going on there? You can find the story on page 23 of the Punch newspaper. Police launch manhunt for hoodlums who killed customs officer in Lagos. That story is on page 4 and 5. You might want to check that out. Disquiet as Bill seeks to usurp EFCC ICPC powers. That story is on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Just above the masthead here, I can see insecurity. Buhari says community leaders police have failed Nigeria. Raid Saraki Dogara low on patriotism. That story is on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. There's a story here that says FG has approved 47 billion naira for Nigeria Air, says Sirika. The story is on page 23 of the Punch newspaper. There's a story here that says insecurity. Afenifere asks Southwest to activate traditional self-defense. The story is on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. And this story quite interests me. If Afenifere, who of course is more or less like a pressure group for the Southwest, that's the Yoruba states, saying that the southwestern states should activate traditional self-defense. Is that more or less not, will that not constitute another insecurity issue in Nigeria? Because we're talking about insecurity, and if everybody takes up arms, how do you think this is the solution?
Well, self-defense here, I don't want to believe Afenifere is trying to mean taking up arms. I'm not sure he's saying people should start carrying arms, but then he's probably saying the Southwesterners should devise means to protect themselves, especially from the different, we have killings, kidnappings and all of that happening around, and before it's deep into the southwestern states. So Afenifere is just saying Nigerians or the Yorubas should try to protect themselves, devise means traditionally to ensure their safety.
And I think this more or less highlights the fact that individuals and Nigerians no longer to an extent trust the security system to protect them, because one of the fundamental functions of the government is protection, to protect its citizens through the executive power of the police. So
exactly, while we expect the government to actually protect and Nigerians also have a lot to do to keep themselves safe. You cannot give your life outrightly to the government. You have to take some precautionary measures. You have to do a lot of things to ensure your own safety as well, and to keep your own community safe. So I'm not sure.
I must say this is a point of debate, because if we go on and on, we'll continue to talk about this. So let's head straight to the Guardian newspaper. What stories you have there?
The banner headline on that story is "Why would disagree with you? National Assembly tells President." We have the the writer to that story. Leader signs 8.92 trillion naira budget. False changes. Another writer. Analysts unveil highs, lows of fiscal spending plan. Speaker of the House of Representatives Yakubu Dogara yesterday reaffirmed the independence of the National Assembly, saying the legislature will not be a rubber stamp of the executive arm of government. According to him, by the constitution and design, the executive informs us what they intend to do, and representatives of the people in National Assembly decide what is priority since they represent the people. We have that story continued on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Another story there, Buhari on Children's Day cautions kids against drug abuse. We have the riders to that story. Promises review of control master plan. Lagos records 2,000 child abuse cases. As Nigeria kids joined their counterparts around the world to mark Children's Day yesterday, the federal government advised them to stay away from drug-related habits and face their studies more seriously for a better future for the country. That story is continued on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Well, the fact that President Buhari is calling on Nigerian children to take caution on drug abuse. It's a good one coming right in time, because we have different issues, especially in cities. We have it coming in developing cities and developed cities in the country, that children just go into drug abuse, and you have a lot of these youths, especially youths, wandering around, and they have become slaves to drug abuse. Some of them have even lost themselves to this issue.
I remember, I think sometime last year there was a popular documentary about how cough syrups have been turned into, substance for getting high. So it's quite prevalent, in our society
going
now.
into all of this. Then Lagos records 2,000 child abuse cases. We have different cases of child abuse and molestation happening around, and we just hope with the marking of the Children's Day, Nigerians will start being conscious of protecting children. Children really needs the protection of Nigerians. They cannot protect themselves. They are innocent. But then when you see a child that needs help, you just go to him and bring that help. Another story here, why nation must embrace electronic voting by Jonathan. That's the news on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Don't throw Nigeria into genocide. Afenifere warns government. That story is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Sports as den of corruption in Nigeria. That's on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. And then I have stakeholders urge Nigerian Ports Authority to investigate bid process. That's on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. And still on the Guardian, Buhari, arise and save Nigeria now. That's an editorial on page 16 of the Guardian newspaper. And then I have a world report here, 45 dead, 200 missing in lake accident. That's on page 47 of the Guardian newspaper. You may want to see where this accident has happened and where the country where this thing has come up. You just pick a copy of the Guardian newspaper. Away from the Guardian, we move on to the Nigerian Tribune.
Okay, the Nigerian Tribune this morning is reporting that the 2019 budget will be hard to implement, says Buhari, with the rider as he signs it into law, and executive legislature friction over budget will continue, says Dogara. And the story is on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. And if you are curious to know why, Buhari is saying that the budgets will be hard to implement, you can find the story on page 3. Now, moving on, Oyo workers suspend strike to honor Makinde. The story is on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. Just crisis, death toll rises to 10. The story is on page 2. I have kept 42 billion naira for Ihedioha, says Okorocha. The story is on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune. Just beside a picture here of President Buhari signing the 2019 budget into law, we have a story here that says Zamfara justice not deliver, says Oshomole. INEC issues certificate of return to new governors, lawmakers elect. That story is on page 37. Trailers return to Apapa Port access roads. That story is on page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. So just to build the masthead, I have a story here that says court acquits Jonathan's brother of $40 million fraud. The writer says we will appeal, says EFCC. You can find the story on page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. Another story here says that Buhari meets nothing governors, assures Nigeria will be secure. The story is on page 2. This story here about the trailers returning to Apapa Port, it's becoming a recurring issue, and President Muhammadu Buhari, has given an order that all the trailers and every other, any other element blocking that road should
be removed
as soon as possible. Now we're getting a report that trailers are returning to their Apapa port, and it seems, I believe it's more. There's more to it, because how can the president give an executive order and those in charge? I mean, what exactly is happening?
Well, this is Nigeria, and we just it looks like so many things are wrong. And we just hope something will right all these wrongs one day. Because, but then while we see that report, we also hear reports of sanity gradually returning to Apapa. So, I mean, I want to believe it's a gradual thing, and maybe in some days' time we will hear that has become a thing of the past.
Okay, all right. So let's move straight to the Nation newspaper.
Buhari rejects bid to stop EFCC from seizing assets. That's a story, the banner headline on the front page of the Nation newspaper. President seeks input from ICPC, NFIU, others on bill. A bill which will clip the wings of anti-graft agencies by establishing a new agency is in the work, the Nation has learned. The bill is seeking to establish the Proceeds of Crimes Recovery and Management Agency, which will strip the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and 6 other agencies of powers to seize assets and invoke the forfeiture clause. It has been sent to the president. So that story is continued on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Right beside that, Nigerians will soon know if I am slow or not. President Muhammadu Buhari told Nigerians last night to expect more actions from his second-term administration. That story is continued on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. We have many Nigerians saying that the president is not fast enough, or not quick enough in addressing the different issues in the country. But then the president is coming out. He said it last night that Nigerians will soon know that he's not as slow as they assume. So let's really see. Let's wait and see how fast.
Yes, I think we all believe that actions
speak
louder than words. Exactly. So if the president is saying he's not slow in his action, I'm very sure that through his own action would see how fast
so let's see how fast he's going to act in this second term, as he will be sworn in tomorrow. All right, another story here: query over projects in 8.92 trillion naira budget. That's on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. Jonathan advocates e-voting for confidence. That's on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Houseboy to die for murder in Lagos. That's on page 5. Soldiers, others held for kidnapping on page 5. Oil prices fall amid Mid-East tension. That story is on page 11 of the Nation newspaper. Government fulfills House pledge to Westerhoff. That's on page 47 of the Nation newspaper. Another story on the Nation: Apapa gridlock, sanity gradually returning to Lagos. That's on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Criminals paraded. You may want to see where these criminals have been paraded, what they have done wrong. You just pick the Nation newspaper and flip to page 5 of that paper. We'll move away from the Nation onto Vanguard newspaper. All right,
the Vanguard newspaper is reporting that insecurity Salah celebrations cancelled in Dora. Islamic clerics differ on cancellation of celebration. Banditry, kidnapping now like Boko Haram, says Northern governors. Buhari governors adopt strategy to fight insecurity. We can't promise Boko Haram will be eradicated, says presidency. The story is on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. I have a picture here of children across states: Lagos, Anambra, Kaduna, and Abuja, during the yesterday's celebration of the Children's Day, and I think they're really having fun here, I must say. And there's a story above the masthead. Buhari signs 2019 budget into law, says insertion of unbudgeted projects by NAS will affect economic growth plan. The story is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. You spoke without knowledge of SIP, Biriam Wise replies Aisha Buhari. The story is on page 8 FG fulfills House pledge to Westerhoff 25 years after. The story is on page 46 of the Vanguard newspaper. Corrupt Nigerians will be after me in 2023, says Buhari. That story is on page 9. I want to check that out and find out what exactly is happening. So just there's a story here. How I'll govern Lagos, Sanwo-Olu. If you're curious to know what exactly Sanwo-Olu is talking about, go to page 42 of the Vanguard newspaper. Headsmen activate traditional self-defense system. Afenifere tells Yoruba. The story is on page 11. Now, there's a story here. The last rider, the headline story for Vanguard says, we can't promise Boko Haram will be eradicated, says presidency. And if you all remember clearly, one of the president's Buhari's mandates, or what they sold out to the Nigerian people is that according to him, these were his words, I will eradicate Boko Haram in 1 year. And if you check across social media, you would always see that quote. So why is he saying now that he can't promise Boko Haram will be eradicated? And we've seen issues like this when a party is coming in, another one is leaving, and they make promises that, and they go back and say we can't. So you feel like you didn't do your feasibility study before you rolled out your campaign plan. So
when I saw that story yesterday, it really got me disturbed, and then I started wondering. Then I picked up the story and I read, and then what he was saying was that they are not promising that Boko Haram will be eradicated.
So when exactly will Boko Haram be eradicated?
And that they're not only saying they are not promising it will be eradicated, but then he said that they are going to do all they can to reduce it. And when I was now wondering that, just like many Nigerians, that if you are saying you're going to reduce it, why not just work towards bringing it all to an end? And Nigerians, let's just hope and expect that the presidency will, at this second term, be able to fight Boko Haram to a stop.
And I also hope that the president understands that most Nigerians voted him based on his promises to eradicate Boko Haram. So he shouldn't have a turnaround view on that. So
exactly, let's hope the presidency will not have a turnaround. He will go back to that promise and fulfill it, because Nigerians are really waiting to hear that Boko Haram has become a thing of the past in the country. Alright, I move to some inside stories on the Nigerian Tribune. 2019 budget will be hard to implement. Buhari has said this. Executive legislature friction over budgets will persist. Dogara has said this. President Muhammad Buhari on Monday in Abuja signed the 2019 budget into law, saying that because of changes made to it, the provisions will be difficult to implement. Alright, yesterday we have the president saying that the National Assembly removed some of the things he presented to them, that they increased they increased some and reduced some, and even added there were even fresh allocations. So and then Dogara is now saying that this friction over the budget will persist. And it's even touching now that Buhari is saying that it will be hard to implement the budget. But no matter how hard it is, Nigerians don't really want to hear that it will be hard or not. What they want to see is implementation of this budget. So we just hope Buhari will get it right to know how to implement the 2019 budget.
Well, thank you very much, Faith. But unfortunately, we have to call it a wrap on today's episode of the newspaper review segment. Now we roll over to Ibadan for rest of the AM Cafe. My name is Folashade Ogurinde.
Alright, and I'm Faith Agbetuya. That will be all on the newspaper review segment coming from the Lagos studio. Good morning.
Good morning.